So I've talked a couple times about Augustine and his beliefs about children and original sin and sin nature. But let's talk about someone else. Let's talk about a more recent example, Jonathan Edwards, very influential 18th century American Calvinist. If you're familiar with Edwards and his work and teaching, you might not be surprised to know that he takes a more pessimistic view of human nature, sin nature. Unlike Augustine, who developed this idea of the non-innocence of children, Edwards was much less reticent to say that children were as guilty as adults, equally depraved, and no less accountable for their sin nature than adults. Catherine Brekus has a great essay on Edwards in the book The Child in Christian Thought, which I highly recommend. And she notes that even though Edwards held really pessimistic views about the nature of children and would even try to scare them in sermons with images of hellfire, there isn't a lot of concrete evidence that he advocated for the harsh treatment of children. She argues that even though it's widely been assumed that Edwards advocated for corporal punishment to correct children, it's actually really difficult to say what his own opinions were about discipline and punishment of children. This interests me because I think it's assumed that Christian beliefs about sin and sin nature in children are upstream of particular parenting practices and approaches to discipline, when historically speaking, there has not always been a very clear connection between those things.